Yay, we're live.
Okay, there we go.
All
Thanks
right,
for getting this
awesome.
going. Megan, I appreciate
Yes.
you setting up the Zoom thing.
No problem.
Yeah,
All right.
welcome everybody. I know we're going to talk about some student work today. We're going to be looking at some middle school student work, just some brief samples, and kind of picking out some of the noun and pronoun issues. Yeah, excited to get started and for us all to kind of talk about it deeper.
Okay, so I needed to clarify the age of the student for the sample. Is it the same student or is it the same age on the sample that we got?
The one I sent first is a 7th grader and the other one is an 8th grader. So yeah, both middle school.
Okay, sample 1 is 7. Okay.
7th and the 8th. Got it. All right.
Okay. So my notes ask me to ask about the background of the student. Does that seem like a place to start, or Rachel, do we need to start elsewhere?
Yeah, that would be good. Most of the students in my class are their second language, their mother tongue is Spanish, and then one of the pieces, the first language was Arabic in that household.
Okay.
So
and that's the 7th grader.
The 8th grader is Arabic speaking, and the 7th grader is Spanish speaking.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they're both kind of on the shyer end. So I feel like it was interesting because I think they're, even there were mistakes. I feel like their writing is stronger than their speaking, in other elements. So.
Right. Oh, you think their writing is stronger than speaking in both cases because they're kind of quiet? Okay.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was really interesting, kind of looking at it from the grammatical perspective, since I'm supposed to do this grammarian part. With the Arabic student, because Arabic doesn't have an indefinite article, they just don't have that in their language. I noticed that in student sample number 2, my favorite park is South John, whatever. I go is most of the time. And it sounds like an indefinite article needs to be used in that instance.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I jumped out of order, so I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
No, you were perfect. I was just introducing a little bit, and then that was great to ask some follow-up questions, and I think it's cool to jump right in. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so the one writing about the park is the Arabic students.
Correct.
Okay. And no indefinite article. Well, of course, if you don't have something in your language, how would you know how to begin using it in another language?
Right.
That transference idea, this is like an example of negative transference.
Right. Right. Not having it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And then I know I'm kind of jumping out of order a little, but it just makes me think as a teacher too of being just so much more cognizant of that. If I'm kind of generalizing a lot of my things, thinking of the context of a Spanish speaker, it's really cool to look at this example so that I can think of that, like you said, Megan, of knowing that article, isn't used in Arabic the same way. I think it's exciting to be that much more cognizant for me, of kind of pointing that out, or finding ways to support her in that too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Certainly, the more you know about their native language, I think the easier it is to anticipate the pitfalls, first of all, anticipate the problem spots, and also then obviously to know how to help them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So should I go over the other points of grammar so that we can make sure we have that kind of set, and then kind of go into
sure.
a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely.
So this week we had to go over nouns and pronouns, and then from my understanding as well, when we did these keys, articles kind of got put in there as another topic to go over, as well as, let me flip, I'm gonna get my book. the idea of count nouns, which I had never even thought about, the idea that we count nouns in different ways, and some nouns we don't count, which
it was super interesting to me, this part, because we have the same issue when I teach French, and I never really learned it, but I developed over the years of teaching this, and I call them countable quantities and uncountable quantities, because we have the same issue with the indefinite pronoun. They have the indefinite article. They have an article that we don't have in English. It basically is an article that is like some. And so when you say some ice cream.
I need to move my dogs, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, I was like, is that a washout?
That's funny.
I have 2 Boston Terriers, and they love to like play fight, and they're like, oh, we're just going to sorry.
That's funny. That's funny.
Awesome.
But at any rate, so I've dealt with this very concept in French because of the countable quantities and non-countable quantities. That you would say some ice cream, but you would say an ice cream if it was a serving of.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've never seen it ever in English, never thought about it really in English, but I've only seen it through the lens of another language.
Yeah, that's interesting. In your example of an ice cream, because I would never say, Mom, can I have an ice cream? I would say, can I have an ice cream cone? And that's when it makes it
countable.
Countable, yeah.
Yes, yes. Can I have some Coke as opposed to can I have a Coke? A Coke is a serving of, that's an individual countable thing. Some Coke, you can't count liquid.
Right.
You can count bottles of liquid. So the minute you put that other noun in there, now it becomes a non-count noun.
Right, and that was another thing they brought up, was in some languages they don't have that distinction, and you should just be able to count liquid all the time.
Right.
For us, we only count quarts or whatever.
Right. That's an interesting thing too. It makes me think of the first piece too, where it's like woman, women, and how hard that is too in other languages of like, okay, one woman, many women, and in like some words like deer, many deer, a deer, but then just like you have to know the context, you have to know every specific word to know which words, like, the rules of making nouns plural and stuff.
Right.
And honestly, like, so if I'm looking at it from, again, the grammar perspective, trying to do the grammarian thing. So in Spanish, they do have plurals for men and women. So this also could just be a developmental piece in terms of
totally
a kid just being like, I mean, I have my native English speakers all the time say, women's, and it's like, no, we need to use the standard grammatical form, because Spanish does have that.
Exactly. I think that's a huge point. Yeah, the maturity thing. Like, how often does she even use words like, it's not until you're like more in late high school, college that you think about people in the context of like women, like that's a great point of just like life experience, how we've talked about in the discussion and how that plays into, like how we use language and see language, huh?
Right. Yeah. Kind of playing into the behaviorist idea a little bit, that when you're exposed to other content, then it starts to click and it connects a little bit more.
Definitely.
I also think that's important in our role as a teacher, to model good language also.
Definitely.
Sure, that we're modeling, that we're using high register language with our students.
Right.
Definitely. And just the art of repetition too, like in our classes right now, I'm working on paraphrasing. And so like every day now I'm like, hey, can you guys paraphrase what I just said the instructions are, So it's just like, too, if they, by the end of the next couple of weeks, they'll be like, oh, we'll paraphrase this for you, miss. So it is fun, like that repetition,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Voila. Okay.
So that gets us through, we kind of covered the count nouns, we covered nouns in general. And then your example had an article issue in it specifically. I'm trying to find out where it was. Well, they also have the count nouns problem in the Arabic one as well. She says, since I was here, I went to school there.
Right.
So that should be 10 years if we're counting that noun correctly.
Yeah.
A plural. It's a plural problem, basically.
Right. And if I'm going back to my grammarian items here, they do have counts and plural forms, and they just have internal word changes. So the idea of adding an S to the end of years is what's foreign to her. She normally would change the word years, I'm assuming in Arabic, to something that has a different conjugation to it.
Yeah.
Well, and we also, and it's maybe out of the scope of what we're doing, but the idiom is actually, I was 10 years old. We have to use the word old in here to make the expression fully comprehensible. Since I was 10 years, sometimes you hear errors like that in second language. Since I was 10 years in Paris, meant I was in Paris for 10 years.
Right.
So if she's talking about age, then she needs to add the word old, which is part of the idiomatic expression to complete the thought.
You're right. I missed that. Yeah.
You know,
I feel like in a lot of European languages too, I remember that with fellow folks when I was in Germany and Austria, that was common too, like missing the years and old, and you know, like those parts I feel like are so hard for not just Arabic speakers, not just Spanish speakers, but probably German. I don't know, French too.
Yeah,
those concepts are so hard.
Well, and I think they're very different. It sounds to me like they're very different from language to language, because in French for age, you say, I have 10 years, or I have 40 years.
Yeah.
So you have the verb have. So yes. And then within the idioms, then you have to look at nouns and the whole aspect of plural and that kind of thing within the idiom. So I thought the fact that the word old was missing, that's a noun that's missing. So that's a noun error within.
I was just going to ask you what that is. So old is a noun there?
Yeah, 10 years. No, actually, 10 years old. I was 10 years. I was old. Old is actually an adjective, I get. Well, you know what? That's weird.
I know. That's what I was wondering.
I was 10 years. Years is the noun. Old is a modifier of the noun, I suppose.
So modifier, hang on, let me try to figure out.
That's going to be an adjective. Sorry.
An adjective, or would it be an adverb?
No, I think it's going to be.
Because it modifies verbs and nouns.
10 years. Both of those words are modifying years old. You know what? I'm not sure. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But the whole point, I think, of this is that the expression, when we talk about age in English, the idiomatic expression is to say the verb to be plus the number plus the word years and then the word old. That formula is how we say age in our language. And that has to be taught. It just has to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
You can say I was 10, but if you're going to add years, you have to add years old as a unit.
Yeah, how interesting. I've never thought about that.
Isn't that funny? Because if she had said since I was 10, there would have been no problem. But the minute she put year in there, then she had to either add old or eliminate the word year. Make it plural and add old.
Right.
But
and you think too, like, of these access tests and things, and kids who are even so strong in English language, but when they make a mistake like that, I'm sure they're graded like, oh, nope, they don't have the grasp of the language, you know, like that
right.
Time element so hard and comes up all the time. I'm sure, you know, I feel like in a lot of my do nows and things, I notice that a lot. Yeah, when you have to talk about something you used to do when you were this age, or, oh, that's so hard for kids.
So the internet is telling me that if you're saying 10 years old, 50 years old, it's a compound adjective that runs together to describe you as the subject, the noun.
Makes sense. Okay.
Interesting.
That makes sense. A compound adjective with 3 components: the age, the word years, and old. But it's a plural for sure, because if a baby is 1 year old, you don't put an S on year.
No, you don't. No, that's right.
So it's definitely a plural singular thing as well. So, cool.
Should we move on to some of the WIDA
stuff?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So we're going to look at this writing rubric here. Let's do the Spanish speaker first.
Okay. Let's see. Not the can do. You said the writing one first.
Yeah,
right?
the writing rubric. Let's go for that.
That's this guy.
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking in the developing to expanding stage myself.
We're still looking at the park text, or we're looking at the other text?
We're looking at the Spanish speaker, so it has the flower up at the top.
The healing flower, right. The healing flower.
Yeah, the constellation. Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. That was actually a good little, I thought she did a nice job on this.
Yeah.
It's a nice
little.
Yeah,
I feel like especially I feel like when you're talking about complex things too, like to have a handle on being able to talk about something almost in story form and something abstract like a constellation. I mean, that's hard stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So on my note thing, it says identification of can-dos in the student's sample. And then the WIDA writing rubric score. It doesn't really matter which one we do first.
Okay. Well, if we identify can-dos first, I guess that key use of key use, the key uses charts that she asked us to print out. I think it's this one.
Oh, that guy. Oh, that's a simple one. Okay, yep, I've got that one. Perfect.
But it looks a little.
Is that the figure 5-1? Not the resource guy. No, that's the one that comes next. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll read that later, okay? The last guy.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Which number was in the corner? I know there was a couple of pages with that one.
I think it's this one, but I feel like I'm wrong because it's so vague.
Broad. The can-do philosophy? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. Because that's what I'm using, and I feel like it's not enough.
So, writing rubric. So I saw one that was the key use of well, let's see. It has the key uses. Did you see that? Key use of explain, key use of account, key use of argue, key use of discuss, and writing in all these different ones. It's a multiple page document.
Okay.
Yes, add the multiple page one, yeah.
Is it in our PLC group work forums?
Yeah, it is. If you go to that WIDA link.
The WIDA speaking rubric.
Yeah, because the one I have is like 10 pages maybe, so I'm trying to think of which one's most important here. But then the other one, yeah, the writing rubric is just that one page, right?
You know, I didn't realize that these were middle school, so I printed out the wrong age group.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
So I'll need your help on choosing the right.
Oh, yeah, I have all that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need help too because I'm very confused. What is in our PLC folder is the WIDA speaking and writing rubric.
Right. That's one thing we need.
But I just don't know what other WIDA rubric I need at this point.
Yeah, I just printed out the middle school one, but that's like many, many pages, and then there's the one page thing. So it is kind of a lot to. Sorry. Let me just deliver my little list to my husband here. I'll be right back. 1 second.
Sure.
Well, I'm still here on the phone, but video, I'm not perfect.
Okay, so we've got pre-K. I found it.
And they're all by grade level, and there's like bunches of them.
Well, it would have been helpful to have that in our content folder, no?
I thought so too. I felt like there was a whole lot of looking for stuff.
Yeah, good Lord. Okay, good. I've got it, and I'm going to save it. No problem.
So I have
y'all's work will be high school then, right? Mine will be middle school.
Yeah, I guess.
Right.
So those are the ones we need. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and take a look. Let's look at that constellation sample. And Rachel.
Yes, I'm here. I'm via voice. 1 second here.
No problem.
Sorry. Yeah, you guys can start talking. Sorry, okay.
I'm just wondering if maybe you could give us a kind of a place to start on the can-dos with the Spanish writing, the Spanish students' writing sample.
Yes, definitely.
Can-dos key uses.
Yeah, I feel like some of the things that sorry. Let's see. I feel like I'm thinking of on that page 4 at the bottom. I was just looking at some of the like identifying main ideas and details. Oh, that was more the oral. Sorry. It's confusing too of like which ones are written.
That's what I'm. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Well, they have. Sorry.
Yeah.
They have 3 categories. It looks to me like they have. Well, I'm looking at a younger one, but they have recount, explain, argue, and discuss. And argue has a writing category. Explain has a writing category, and recount has a writing category. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I see the recount type stuff. Yes.
So it looks to me like we should focus on the writing category of the recount, explain, and argue, and see where.
So it looks like. So she's not producing based on like multiple sources. That would be like bridging. The expanding is like producing content-related reports, reproducing a sequence of events or experiences using transitional words. So I feel like in the expanding section, under writing, she does pretty good. If it's like between developing, expanding, I don't know. So developing is producing short paragraphs with main ideas and some details, composing dialogues or blogs based on personal experiences. It's hard when I wonder if you kind of have to pick one. You can't be like in between, you know?
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, she's at that level 3 developing of producing a short paragraph. She's got a main idea. She has details. She has compound sentences. So I think that she's pretty much at that level 3. I don't think that she's there for multiple paragraphs and justifying her ideas quite.
No,
maybe she's reaching to there.
Yeah, and then I feel like getting to the key uses of explain. That sounds weird. It's kind of like the same boat. It's like she's talking about like events and characters, producing descriptive paragraphs around essential ideas. So maybe that would be more developing. But then she's describing some relationships between details and connecting some themes. So again, it's like that very strong at developing and then like kind of in that expanding area too, you know?
Nice. Ladies, I just have to tell you that we just got a warning that we have 10 minutes left on the 40-minute free thing.
Okay.
So 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. So we would say that she's developing and moving into, she's developing and moving into expanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? Do we want to just use this one sample then?
Sounds great.
We've only got 10 minutes.
That might be easier. Yep.
Okay. Developing and moving into expanding. And again, I don't have it in front of me because I have the younger one. Can you give me 2 keywords that tell us that?
Yeah. So moving into the key, like connecting ideas.
Okay.
With details.
Okay.
Summarizing ideas and supporting them.
Summarizing and supporting. Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's hard because some of the WIDA stuff is like more about arguments and stuff, uses of argue, and that doesn't really fit our work as much for that one, I think.
It does not apply to this type of writing. Exactly, I agree.
Exactly.
So argue doesn't
really
really
look
apply.
at that other WIDA framework, the other WIDA sheet that we need to jump into
Is that the
as
writing
well?
rubric?
The writing rubric, yep. And that's a simple, that's much simpler. That's a one-pager, and it's K-12.
Yeah.
Or 112. So linguistic complexity on that one, let's kind of maybe start where we are there, developing, and see if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that she is simple, but she expands her sentences. So for instance, she says, she makes it my goodness, she makes it a healing flower by her power. So she added that section on to be like, oh, that's why it's healing. She has reason.
Right, and she's giving causal effect there also. Mm-hmm. So that's, emerging cohesion. Yeah, so show it complexity and providing detail for sure.
She has, I didn't really understand that this was about constellations. I do see that it says the stars eventually. So I would say in the beginning in her general use of language, like she didn't try to use that word constellation. And that was
true.
What the assignment was about.
That's such a good point too, because I feel like that's something that we always have to be reminding English language learners, like in testing and writing, is like reuse something that's in the directions almost, like integrate those same words again, those same nouns, you know.
For my high school kids, I have to explicitly tell them, you will use and define these terms, and they still don't do it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I do the same thing teaching my kids French, even my advanced kids. I'm like, use your resources. The stuff in the question is going to be to your answer in many cases. So for the writing rubric in vocab usage, are we thinking more beginning?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and not using the keyword constellation, for example?
That would be a really good example. Yep.
Okay, and on linguistic complexity?
I think that she's in developing stage 3 because she qualifies what's going on, how she makes the flower healing.
Okay. What did you say you cut out for a second? She what's going on? She explains or she modifies? What'd you say?
She modifies and says that it is a healing flower, and she makes it that way because of her power.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. So.
And she talks about like magic, but magic was spelled wrong. Yeah, it's like she has some of those more abstract words, but there might be a struggle with them, kind of, huh?
Right.
And then I think for language control, she fits in the developing scene again, because it's comprehensible when she's writing in her sentences. The comprehensibility is from time to time impeded by errors when attempting to produce more complex text. I don't think it's the proper way to say that the flower is a healing flower made so by her power. She went about it the awkward way to say it, but it still got through.
Right, she gets the point across, but it's awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. How should we jump to that just next piece of next steps, like instructional and assessment practices?
Yeah.
How many minutes do we have? Yeah, are we okay?
I can't see how many we have, but yeah.
What would we think going forward that we would focus on? Like definitely some of those nouns of like woman, women, trying to think some of the other words.
And how could we do that with manipulatives, or what kinds of materials would make sense for that, the woman versus women?
I think it's so fun to like, especially middle schoolers are so social when you can like act stuff out or do skits or like, I don't know, like just be really active in that learning, you know, like I don't know how that would look like. Okay, one woman, you go to this side of the room. All the women, let's run over here. You know, if we were outside or something too. I don't know, if, like, you know, that moving too, that kinesthetic part would be kind of cool for that. I don't know.
Well, if they have manipulatives like with assigned woman and then or women, and then they would have to group themselves or stand alone according to what their sign said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome. And then like, with her sentence structure, making it more fluid. I feel like she would do well with some sentence frames to maybe get her kind of started to explain, well, this is how you would say that the flower has power because the woman transfers, and then like there you're adding in more vocabulary. So if you were to blank out some of those words to connect them together for her, maybe a sentence.
You know what would almost be cool too is I feel like more and more kids are doing like podcasts and things too. And I know this was working more on writing, but if she was in a group and kids could like correct each other's language a little too, I feel like there's so much power in that, like that your editing element, like, oh, try this word and oh, try that, you know, because then that's, you're writing, but then you're also working later on like speaking and stuff. I don't know.
We have 2 minutes.
Okay, so peer editing with students suggesting vocab and other ideas for improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All righty.
That. What else do we have to accomplish? We got our instructional steps. All right.
Specific grammar errors. So I'll just look at we talked about the non-count and non-count nouns, so we can put that.
Okay. Yeah, because we did both Weedle parts. We looked at some of the errors, identified grammar points. We talked about next steps. Seems like we jumped on a lot of the big ones. Did we talk about typical ELL errors? I guess that's something we could always add to our notes later, right?
Yeah. I think the typical errors often come from their native language, and so the error of the article, missing article.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or the missing or the incorrect article with the count and non-count nouns.
Yes.
And then also the fact that just developmentally, kids have a hard time with women and women.
Right.
Even
some irregulars. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great point. Sorry.
No, that's good. Okay, well, I will I'll get this typed up. And I'll get this typed up. Looks like we have about a minute left. Anything else that you can think of, guys?
I think that's it. I'm going to upload it right to YouTube, and I'll put the link up right away. And then after we've looked at the notes, if you want to upload those, Jane.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
And then,
I will type them into the.
Should I tomorrow more scan the document? Because I took the picture of the document, so I worry that might not be clear enough. So I can scan those 2 artifacts and email them to you guys too tomorrow. Would that be more helpful?
Yeah. Everyone is fine as long as just upload. Do we have to upload those?
I imagine we would, right? Or not? I have to look at that closer. Yeah. So, because were you guys able to see it pretty clearly? Was that okay?
I
just wanted to make sure.
It's not terrible, but if it's not an issue, to scan the ones in the future, that would be easier.